Drawing mandibular right first premolar. In drawing mandibular teeth, the outline of the crown will be drawn upward while the outline of the root will be downward. The total length of the crown is 54, the total length of the root is 56. The mesiodistal diameter at cervix is 20, 10 toward the mesial and 10 toward the distal, while the mesiodistal diameter of the crown across the contact areas is 28, 14 toward the mesial and 14 toward the distal. Of course, the exact location of the mesial and distal contact point is slightly occlusal to the center of the crown, or in the occlusal portion of the middle third of the crown. So I already marked the length of the root, which is 56, the length of the crown, 34. I divided the length of the crown into 3 thirds, 11 for the occlusal and cervical thirds, and 12 millimeter for the middle third. This is 10 for the mesiodistal diameter across the cervix, 10 toward the mesial, and 10 toward the distal. The location of the contact points, I will go down from the junction between the occlusal and middle third about 4 millimeters and put a mark at the distance of 14 millimeter. So this is 14 millimeter to the mesial and 14 millimeter toward the distal. Then I will draw the outline of the crown according to the information in the lecture. So the mesial outline is concave from the cervical area, then it will become convex around the mesial contact area. The distal outline also starts as concave till the distal contact area, which is broader than the mesial. Of course, the characteristic of this tooth, just like all other premolars except the maxillary first, is the mesial slope of the cusp is shorter than the distal. This will place the tip of the cusp slightly toward the mesial. So I mark the tip of the cusp about 2 millimeters mesial to the bisecting line. I will draw the distal slope and the mesial slope, which is slightly concave compared with the distal. Regarding the root outline, it's similar to the outline of the mandibular canine. It's a narrow mesiodistally and start to taper evenly from the cervical area toward the apex with a slight distal inclination. So I will mark 2 millimeters below the end point of the root length and 2 millimeters toward the distal. Then the root will taper evenly from the cervical area toward the apical portion. Finally, I will draw the cervical line curvature, which is slight, just like all other posterior teeth. To draw the lingual aspect, the same procedure is followed, only the outlines will be reversed. This is the mesial side and this is the distal. The only difference here is the outline of the lingual cusp. The lingual cusp is located about 2/3 the distance between the cervical line and the tip of the buccal cusp. And the other characteristic is the mesial marginal ridge, which is more inclined and at a lower, or more oblique and at a lower level compared with the distal marginal ridge. I should extend, or should start from below the junction between the middle and the occlusal thirds as a straight line. Then it will curve to make the apex, or the tip, of the lingual cusp. Then it will incline downward to form the mesiolingual groove. This will be the mesial marginal ridge, and this is the distal marginal ridge, which is at a higher level. These are the inclines of the triangular ridge of the buccal cusp. And this is the distal fossa, and this is the mesial fossa. So these are this is the main difference between the outline of the buccal and lingual aspects. To draw the mesial aspect, in addition to the crown length and root length, we need the buccolingual diameter of the crown across the crest of contours and the buccolingual diameter as cervix. So we'll go 13 toward the buccal and 13 toward the lingual, and then we go 15 across the buccal height of contour and 15 towards the lingual height of contour. So this is 13 and 13. The buccal height of contour is located at the junction between the cervical and middle thirds. So I will put a mark here at this point. 15 represent the buccal height of contour, while the lingual height of contour is in the center of the middle third. So I will go down or up from here for 6 millimeters and put a mark at 15. Then I should mark the position of the tip of the buccal cusp, which is nearly centered over the root apex, or slightly buccal to the center of the crown, while the lingual cusp apex is usually in line with the lingual outline of the root. As you can see here in this figure, the apex of the lingual cusp is usually in line with the lingual outline of the root, and the lingual outline of the lingual cusp is usually lingual to the lingual outline of the root. So the tip of the buccal cusp will be right here, while the tip of the lingual cusp is at exact position of the mesodistal diameter across the cervix. So I will go 13 millimeters from the midline toward the lingual and put a mark near the junction between the occlusal and middle thirds. So this will be the position of the tip of the lingual cusp. Then I will draw the outline according to the information of the lecture. The buccal outline is usually convex due to the presence of prominent buccal ridge, while the lingual outline is usually less convex. Then I will draw the outline of the lingual cusp, or the cusp slope. Then the mesial marginal ridge. Before drawing the mesial marginal, I will draw the buccal triangular ridge of the buccal cusp, which will form the transverse ridge with the lingual triangular ridge, or the triangular ridge of the lingual cusp. Then, parallel to the slope of the buccal triangular ridge, the mesial marginal ridge will run in an oblique direction. Then I will draw the buccal triangular ridge, or the triangular ridge of the buccal cusp. Then I will draw the mesial marginal ridge with the mesiolingual groove. It will run parallel with the buccal triangular ridge, or triangular ridge of the buccal cusp. The outline of the root, usually the root will follow a straight or nearly straight outline from the cervical line toward a point at the mid length of the root at 28 millimeters. Then it will taper markedly toward the root apex. So I will measure 28. This is 10, 20. This is 28. I will start drawing the outline relatively straight from the cervical line toward the point at midway of the root length. Then it will taper markedly toward the apex. Regarding the curvature of cervical line, it's only 1 millimeter. Magnification equals 4. So this is the mesial aspect. To draw the distal aspect, the same procedure will be followed. The only difference is that the distal marginal ridge will be at a right angle to the long axis of the tooth, and there is no mesiolingual developmental groove. So the slope of the buccal triangular ridge will merge with the slope of the lingual cusp. Of course, the cervical line will be nearly straight on the distal aspect compared with the mesial aspect. To draw the occlusal aspect, I marked the buccolingual dimension which is 30, 15 toward the buccal and 15 toward the lingual, and the mesodistal diameter, which is 28, 14 toward the distal and 14 toward the mesial. This is the mesial and this is the distal. The outline of this tooth is usually can be represented by a semicircular arc from the buccal crest toward the lingual crest distally. This is the distal, so we have a semicircular arc. Then on the mesial, we have a smaller circular arc from the buccal crest toward the mesiolingual groove. Mesiolingual groove is usually, I can mark the position about 5 mm mesial to the midline and 4 mm above toward the buccal. So I mark the position of the mesiolingual. I will go 5 mm mesially and 4 mm up. This will be the position of mesiolingual groove. Then I will draw the outline according to the description. This will be the position of the mesiolingual groove. I will draw the outline or the cusp ridges of the buccal cusp, which is nearly centered over the root. We have the distal developmental groove with the distal fossa, which is directed buccally, and the mesial developmental groove with the mesial fossa, which is also directed buccally. So these are the outlines of the mandibular right first premolar from all aspects.